Have you ever felt completely lost trying to keep track of upcoming game releases? Because every time I look for a release date calendar, it's the same thing. Outdated list, inaccurate information, or worse, endless catalogs filled with thousands of games nobody's ever heard of. Now, if I were an hardcore gamer or a huge fan of video game, I would have liked to have a complete list with niche game. But let's be real for a second. I'm not an hardcore gamer, and chances are neither are you. All I want is a simple list of the most anticipated games with their release dates. That's it. Now you might be thinking, but Samuel, why don't you just go on Steam and sort games by their wishlist counts? You would probably be right. But on Steam you cannot sort games by their wishlist counts and by their release date. On top of that, Steam shows you games that don't even have a release date. And I tried searching online to see if there were any website that could do something similar, but I couldn't find anything, or at least nothing that I actually liked. So you know what? I decided to build it myself, and I will show you exactly how I did it. So here's the idea. A simple web page that does one thing and does it well. Just a list of games organized by their release dates, from the newest to the ones coming later this year. When you first land on the page, you'll only see the gaming heavy hitters, you know, the titles that everyone is talking about. The Elden Rings, the God of War, the Kingdom Come, the Assassin's Creed, the games that actually make headlines. You see this filter here? This is where it gets interesting. It displays games based on their wishlist counts. If you go all the way up, it will only show the very top of the most anticipated games. But if you go all the way down, you will display everything, from major blockbusters to games nobody has ever heard of. The settings by default are focused on the most anticipated releases. No games with two wishlists on the dream, just stuff that actually matters. That's the vision. Now that I have a general idea of the website and what I want to do, we need data to display. My first idea to get the data was to check if Steam had an API that lists all the most anticipated games, but unfortunately, they don't provide this kind of API. Same thing for other websites that provide this kind of information like SteamDB, Backlogged, Steambase.io. They have the page, but they don't provide an API. So I decided to scrap SteamDB, which is a website that already scraps Steam and display information about the games and data. The idea was to grab the most anticipated page and then go to every game's detail page to extract the data. At first it seems like a good solution, but I encountered a lot of trouble trying to scrap this website. I could have used proxies or hated them, but that felt like over-engineering just to scrap Steam's games. I searched for alternatives to SteamDB, but nothing was as good. So I kept searching and I finally found a solution, scrapping Steam's itself. Yeah, it seems obvious, but hear me out. I need to run games based on their anticipation, which required a relevant matrix. SteamDB and similar websites use the followers or a community hub metric, but I had no clue how to get this data. And I couldn't find anything on the Steam API or on the Steam Community Hub page. I spent hours searching and I finally found it here, on the Steam Community Search page. So let's recap. Here is the process. I have a cron that every day will dispatch a job to the job queue. The job is then stored in the Redis database, and once it's time to be processed, the worker processes the job. It will launch Steam's most wishlisted page. Then I scroll down to the page to load every game. For each row, I check if there is a defined release date. If there is one, I extract the Steam ID of the game. Once I collected every game's ID, I loop over this array, and for every ID I perform an API call to the Steam API to extract the useful data of the game, such as the release date, the title, the description, images, and so on. Now I need one more metric, the Community Hub number. So I launch a new Steam page, search the Community Hub with the game ID, and take the first row and extract the number. every time I scrap a game I need to store it into a database. To do that, I had two options, SQL or NoSQL. I hoped for NoSQL with MongoDB because I didn't want to deal with tables, migration and all that. Plus I wanted something flexible. Now we are building a small backend with Node.js to retrieve the data from the Mongo database and display it. To do that I'll use Node.js, which is kind of like Express but better for obvious reasons. For now I only have one route, which is the homepage with the list of old games. For displaying the data I'm using a template engine to handle server-side rendering and enable SEO, along with HTMX to perform HTTP requests to update the games list when I change the filters. For the UI and frontend, I'll use Tailwind CSS and Daisy UI. So, now that the frontend is finished, let's prepare for deployment. In order to do this, we are going to Dockerize the application. I will create two Docker files, one for the application and one for the worker. Then I will run everything with a Docker Compose file, adding MongoDB and Redis to the mix. Now that everything is set up, we can deploy the app on any VPS. Personally, I use Hostinger or Etzner, but you can go with whatever works for you. To install the web app on a server, I use Deploy, which is a graphical interface that let me deploy without needing to install a bunch of stuff or manually configure things like HTTPS, Docker, traffic and so on. It's basically an open source alternative to Vercel, Heroku, Fly.io, Render.com, etc. Oh, and by the way, if I didn't already have a VPS, I would probably use some Cloud Function and host the frontend on services like Cloudflare, Firebase or Netlify to keep the cost at $0. Now that everything is set up, we just need to buy a nice domain. For SEO purposes we need something straightforward, that's why I choose the upcoming games releases. The domain name kinda sucks, especially if I name the website accordingly, but anyway, if you have a better idea, let me know in the comment section. And here is the final result. You can see and filter the games by anticipation level and see games by chronological order. To improve the website, I could fetch more information about the games, and I could also add more filters to let users choose exactly what they want to see, like filtering the games by their categories, their age limit, their platform support, etc. Is there anything you would have done differently? And if so, how would you approach it? Let me know in the comment sections. Thank you guys for watching, this was my first video ever, so if you liked it or disliked it, or if you have any advice, please let me know.